Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started here. My name is Adam Hobler. I'm with 9 Square Ventures, which is the venture investment arm of Purina. We are hosting this panel discussion around putting the pet at the center of your pet care business. Nowadays there's a lot of talk around the user experience, and that's completely relevant in pet and in human businesses, but in pet there's also the component of the pet experience. And so we have 2 panelists here with us today who have different businesses, but both very focused on putting the pet at the center of them. So the first one here is Shea Cox. So Shea Cox is the founder of PetHospice. It is an end-of-life service for pet owners. And she is a speaker, an author, a veterinarian, just a generally well-respected person in and around the pet space. She's joining us from California. And I don't know, Shea, if you wanted to say just a little bit about the value that PetHospice gives to its customers.
So with PetHospice, we offer 3 pillars of support to pet parents, and that is 90-minute quality of life telehealth consults to be able to give clients the time that they need, an online education platform that's video-based so they can go and learn and get more information, as well as an online community of support that is moderated by veterinarians, veterinary nurses, and social workers to give yet an additional layer of support.
Our other panelist is Leib Dodell. So Leib is the founder of Bar K, and Bar K is a dog park that also has a bar, a restaurant, a live entertainment venue. It's got a lot of things going on there. It's a very cool, unique experience. Leib is not new to starting a business. About a little over 5 years ago, he started a cyber media insurance company. And he's coming to us from Kansas City. Leib, do you want to talk a little bit about Bar K and what they offer the customers?
Yeah, thanks, and hello, everybody. So I have no background in pet or hospitality as a business person, but as a pet owner, my partners and I felt that there was a missing piece in the pet owner experience, which is that there were so many great products and services. Many of them are represented here, but there were very few places to go. And of course, owning a pet is all about engagement and the joyfulness that connection brings. And we couldn't understand why nobody was creating safe, creative spaces for people and dogs to socialize together. And that's what we set out to do. So we opened our first location, our first Bar K facility, almost exactly a year ago this week.
Pets can't really participate in focus groups. Where did you guys look for insights around like pet behavior, pet insights that ultimately helped build what that pet experience looks like in your company? I don't know, Shea, if you want to kick us off there.
For me, the majority of my experiences came from being a veterinarian and spending first 13 years in the emergency room and then 7 years running my own hospice and palliative care practice. And so I was seeing the human-animal bond just across the scope at some of the most emotionally charged times possible. And I was gaining a lot of insights through those interactions during very stressful times. And when you care for the pet in these times, you're actually caring for the client, and that's the part that you just can't separate.
I'm not so sure that pets can't participate in focus groups. I mean, I bet maybe we're not giving them enough credit.
That's fair. Do you guys have a facility to host those?
We do. We have private event suites, and we do have product manufacturers come in and tap into our community of pet owners and do essentially a focus group for the pets, trying to figure out what they don't like, what they do like. So I think one of the things that we've discovered is that pets can participate in a lot more of our day-to-day lives than we give them credit for. You know, when we were creating the business, a lot of people said, what are you going to do about all the dog fights? And people were just like deeply pessimistic about this working. And we've had 175,000 people come through our space with their dogs in the first year. And we can count the number of incidents we've had on the fingers of one hand. So I think we have shown that it's possible to include our best friends in more and more of our activities.
So like with the pet and human interaction, there's a lot of like unique experience, a lot of unique emotional, physical interactions there. How do you guys identify and then like act upon those to like, you know, keep your business evolving and continue to like evolve how you guys are approaching that pet experience?
I know, and what's interesting is we're on the opposite ends of the happy spectrum. I'm talking about all these sad things, and you're talking about the other end of things. But you know, for me, it's looking at how a pet parent responds with everything that we do, every piece of the process, every reaction. So looking at how a pet parent is responding to what we're doing are just such key things. And that has really helped us evolve our business down to an incredibly granular layer, from all the way down to how our blankets smell and feel on a euthanasia, because it's, there's these little details that are really making the experience for the pet as best as it can be, but in turn, that's what makes the experience for the pet parent.
So that pet and that owner interaction are so intertwined, right? Like the owner sees the pet, you want to make sure that pet's having a great experience, and that in turn creates that experience for the owner?
Absolutely. They're inextricable. You can't separate the two. So, what the pet is feeling is what the pet parent's feeling.
We had the opportunity to have dinner last night with a group, and even though we are at sort of different ends of that spectrum, we were both motivated by very similar passions, which is that we both felt that there was this missing piece in the experience of that dog and owner bond that we wanted to fill. And humans, hospice care for humans is a familiar thing, and we afford humans this opportunity to have a thoughtful, dignified end of life. Why wouldn't we do the same for dogs? And so Shea has filled that need. And as humans, we love to socialize with our friends. We like to go to bars. We like to have dinner. We're communal animals. And we haven't been able to include our best friends in that, and that's the gap that we filled. So really, in a way, philosophically, the businesses were motivated by very similar desires, I think.
What have been some of the most surprising or unexpected kind of interactions or insights that you've seen between pets and owners or pets and pets?
One of the things that happens constantly at Bar K is we have an owner approach the front entrance. We have a front desk where you check in and we get some basic information about vaccinations and so forth. And the owner is so nervous because their dog has never been to a dog park. They're unsure about how the dog is going to handle the experience, and they're fearful and they're anxious. And we all know that the dog is going to feed directly from that anxiety. So what we try to do is to separate the person from the dog and get the owner over to the bar for a drink. And the dog happily goes into that park, and the owner is astonished. So the answer to your question is, I've been surprised by, even among pet owners, how little they really understand the behavior of their own animals. And so I think we can play a real role in educating our human clients about what's really going on with their animals, and not take for granted that they understand things that we as professionals take for granted.
Some of the most surprising things that I've discovered along my profession in hospice is that it is not such a doom and gloom sad. Everyone's like, aren't you so sad at what you do all the time? And it's like, no, it's such a gratifying experience. And what we see are families just really embracing these final memories. I mean, I've been in homes for euthanasias, and we've had live bands playing. We've had dinner parties where everyone's been invited, and grilling filet mignons, and just really, not giving people that experience to have that last experience with them and that memory. It just, the realization of just how important that is for a family is such a powerful thing, and it just drives everything that we do.
Okay, so I kind of a little theme between both what you guys were saying was just educating the owner, there's a component there educating the owner on their own pet. Are there, if I'm a pet care startup, are there particular areas that I should be aware of educating my customer?
I mean, I think the opportunities are endless. I mean, it's the situation I just described about an owner not really appreciating the body language of his or her own dog is a perfect example. So we bring in behaviorists, and we have classes at Bar K where we teach people how to read body language, what it means when the dog's panting, or the dog's ears are back, or the eyes are cold, or all the things that we understand to be signals. A lot of people don't. Another example I would give is that, look, there's a lot of, I'm going to use the polite word mythology instead of the two-letter acronym starting with a B that I would otherwise use. There's a lot of mythology about dogs and sort of common knowledge that I think ends up on closer examination being garbage. And one example at Bar K is children. There was a lot of concern about allowing kids in this off-leash environment. And the safe and easy thing would have been just to say no kids, it's too risky. But we saw an opportunity to educate. So we have every kid 12 and under watch an animated video that we produce that teaches them some basic rules about how to safely approach dog, ask a person first, let the dog smell you, don't run, etc. And again, we've had tens of thousands of kids through the facility, no incidents, and now we're educating the next generation of pet owners.
When you think about your businesses relative to like the human analog type business, like what are some of the things that you think are like most unique within pet?
No, I think it's sort of, our business is sort of the opposite, which is how can we kind of normalize the experience that we have as people and simply include our dogs in that experience that we would otherwise be having. So we don't make everyone confront this awful choice when you get home from work and your dog's been in the apartment all day and you want to engage with your dog, but you want to go have a drink with your friends and you have this false choice. And I think we've tried to show people that it doesn't have to be that way, that you can do both of those things. So, you know, like walking through this casino when it's SuperZoo and seeing all these dogs on leashes through the casino gives me the fantasy of the Bar K Hotel and Casino, where we combine a casino with a dog park and I can play blackjack for 5 hours while my dog is playing. So, I mean, it's a silly example, but I think there are so many things that we do as just normal course of our lives as humans that there's absolutely no reason we can't include our dogs in if we just put some thought and creativity into it.
So outside of dog parks, or like, well, dog park, bar, restaurant, entertainment spaces, and pet hospice, like what are other areas of the pet care, what other like segments within the pet care industry that you guys feel are doing a really good job of putting pet at the center?
I really like keeping my eye on like the doggy daycares, the doggy hotels. They seem to have this elevated level of doggy experience. So Hollywood D hotels is for pets. They have a few chains, but they literally have dog pet pickup services. You can upgrade to a Bentley or a Lamborghini. They have full orthopedic beds, like actual rooms, hotel rooms that are not kennels, just so flat screen TVs. But, you know, and again, is that the pet experience or is that the client experience? but just that whole space of just creating a happy day for a dog, so they don't have to stay in an apartment. They get to go somewhere and, you know, really be a dog all day long. I think that's an amazing space of just showing what can be done for the pet experience.
So can I answer a slightly different question, which is where aren't we providing that service for pet owners? And I just think there's so many industries where we could be offering an alternative. Travel. I mean, we as pet owners who like to take our dog places, our car is pretty much it. Like, we can't fly, we can't really take trains as far as I'm aware. And 46% of us have pets, dogs, right? So where are the travel services focusing on 46% of them? Can you think of a business where you could instantly capitalize on 46% of the marketplace? So fitness centers, I mean, you know, people are going there to exercise. Dogs love running around. I mean, why can't we combine these things and give our dogs so many other opportunities to engage and live happy lives filled with recreation? They're out there. We just have to be creative. I heard of an innovative program where high school cross-country teams were going and taking shelter dogs on their workout runs. Shea, are you familiar?
Yep.
Genius. I mean, they're running. The dogs need the recreation. Problem solved. And I think there's so many opportunities like that that are right under our nose if we just apply a little innovation.
So when you think back to when you first started your business, are there any big learnings or things that you wish you would have known, like at the start, and kind of like key learnings that you've had since?
I wish I knew how hard it was to run a bar and restaurant. The dogs have been the easy part of our business. Like, the dogs have exceeded our expectations in terms of behavior. Running a bar and a restaurant, especially one that's open 7 days a week for breakfast, lunch, and dinners, super challenging.
For me, along those same lines, is just running a business. You know, veterinarians are not taught to be business savvy. We have zero training in business. We're really good at medicine, but as far as the learning curve of, you know, when I started our hospice practice 7 years ago, it was just, what can I learn on Google? What can I learn here? And a lot of reading. So for me, that learning curve of all of these things that I'm learning as a startup, which goes to speak to the importance of mentors and developing a network and connecting with people in the space that were able to do so, that will help you through that process, because it is quite a trajectory.
Yeah, if I could just add, I think the point Shea makes is really important, because so many of us get into this industry because we love our pets, and that's great, and it gives us that passion to generate the enthusiasm you need to do this. But that doesn't mean you don't have to have the basic business skills and all of the things that go into running a business. The fact that it's this joyful industry of dogs doesn't help you with the finance and the IT infrastructure and the HR issues that any business is going to face. So I think you're absolutely right.
You kind of mentioned like networking and Google are like two key places to get up to speed or move up that learning curve. Are there any other resources that you guys that come to mind that you guys have leveraged?
Yeah, for me, LinkedIn is a huge resource. I read everything I can about every pet space, about every person doing something in the pet space, and then take it a step further and reach out to them and introduce myself and create a network. And I think one of the other things that I learned along the way, I'm an extreme introvert, incredibly shy. So for me to learn to just approach people and say, hi, my name's Shea, that was a really big thing for me. But I knew if I wanted to get into this space and do things that I would have to get over that, which is why I do things like this, and I get out of my comfort zone and I meet people and connect with, the fantastic opportunities, like the Pet Care Innovation Network provides. So it's just get out of your comfort zone and do it and connect, because it's amazing how helpful people are in return, and they just truly want to help you get to where you want to be.
I'm a shameless self-promoter, so I did not have that particular problem, but similar answer though, which is finding experts in the areas where you need help, especially coming into the pet industry kind of as an outsider. Example, we had to design a 2-acre dog park, and our whole value proposition is that unlike a public dog park, which is great, now you're going to a place that, yes, you're going to have to pay to go to, but there's a gatekeeper, there are people in there to make sure your dogs are safe, there are people to monitor the behavior. So we had to offer an elevated experience. So we identified the best dog trainers in town, and we had them help us design a park that was, for example, free from corners where a dog could feel trapped, where their fight or flight instincts might kick in, where the transitions between the on-leash and the off-leash areas were really carefully thought through to make that passage safe and seamless. So we also, as you know, Adam, we have on our menu food for people and food for dogs, and they both come out of our kitchen and are made by our cooks from the same human-grade materials. But we consulted with some of your colleagues who are nutritionists to make sure that the meals we're providing for the dogs met certain dietary requirements. So always reach out to experts in the disciplines that you're in.
Great advice, great advice. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the crowd. If anybody has a question you'd like to ask of Shea, Leib, or myself, Dan Roos right there, just go ahead and raise your hand, and Dan will bring around the mic. I got one right up front.
Hi, my name's Nick. So you talked about educating the consumer and overcoming some myths when you have a physical location and you can bring them into that location. What if you have a product or you don't have a direct in-person relationship with the customer? Is there anything you're able to do over like social media or other ways to reach out to them to maybe overcome some of those barriers? Thank you.
I'm like a cranky old Jewish non-technical person, but I'm going to give you isn't it easier to do it in a non-physical, because you've got all these tools. You can do podcasts, you can use all these tools to create a virtual environment to give instruction to people in a much more broader scope than I can do in my space, where we have seminars all the time and we get 20, 30 people, and you can reach thousands at a time on your digital platform. So that's, as a non-tech expert, that's my instinct.
Yeah, it probably just comes down to having like the right message, right? Like delivering the message in the right way and creating as much of an experience as you can to help with educating. You get to do it physically.
Yeah,
you would have to do it.
Can I ask Nick, like what business specifically are you thinking of? Like,
So a physical reptile feeder is
Yeah.
what he was saying for his business.
So, if you find a business that already has an audience and collaborate with them on a podcast, we recently did that with a group that does educational podcasts for petrepreneurs, and they came and set up in our physical space, but just did a live podcast that was able to reach out to people all over the country. So I think you've got a lot of opportunity to use digital platforms to get that message out.
And I would say create a tribe of reptile owners, offer them education, give, and then give some more. And I think that's really key to developing a community and sales. So if you create, say, even a closed Facebook group on reptile husbandry, which that's a very difficult thing to manage, and you provide tips and give resources, then people, when they need something, they're going to think you first. And so I think, for me, that was something that was really helpful in promoting our telehealth services. We created a community of pet parents who need help. They don't need euthanasia services or help yet, but they're beginning to prepare. And to become an expert in that community, they're going to look to you first before anyone else. And I think that's a really powerful way to get a message across.
All right, another question?
I have a question for Shea, actually. Curious to hear what you think about, I guess if you're thinking of the human experience after the dog or the cat passes on, you kind of leave the human in kind of a, tough emotional space where a loved one has passed. Curious how you think about, continuing to work with the human in that space, and, what your approach is for that, and is there any opportunity to kind of, as a business, kind of continue the relationship with that consumer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, after a euthanasia, it's a very traumatic event. We follow up with clients a few days later to, by email, by phone, asking how they're doing. We work with social workers if they need grief support. We send a sympathy card. During our appointments, we have a unique model where we're 2 to 3 hours in length if people need it, but we spend a lot of time communicating and sharing stories and just hearing all of these just wonderful pieces of that pet's life. And so our sympathy cards are resharing those stories back. Like, thank you for letting us, know, the freezer raid that he did and ate all of your, whatever it is. It's just, there's all of these little nuggets. And, what we do is we also, instead of just notifying the referring veterinarian with a standard letter, your pet was euthanized, we literally write a story. So they're about a page long. We share them we send that to the veterinary clinic, and we get more calls from the veterinary receptionist. The last one she was in tears, and she said, "You made my patient's life matter." And that was such a powerful thing to just take. You can touch so many people just by taking the time to just do a little more, and it doesn't cost anything to do more.
All right. Well, I just want to say a big thanks to Shea and Leib for sitting on the panel. We really appreciate you guys' thoughts, and hopefully everyone here was able to think about their pet business a little bit differently. And maybe if you have any follow-up questions, I'm going to offer you guys that. They can come and intercept you on a one-on-one afterwards. If you have any questions for me, feel free to intercept me. If you have any questions about the Pet Care Innovation Prize, Dan in the middle there raising his hand, he will be able to give you any and all answers you may want. So thanks.
Thanks, everyone.